Welcome back to part 2 of this week's Aiding Your Game, where we're creating an adventure from scratch out of the Dungeon Master's Guide using just random rolls and some creativity. We're splitting this video into 2 parts so it's more palatable. We've already worked to get the bones created. Now let's start fleshing out the skeleton. Before we continue on, make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button to help us grow. Also, if you don't mind getting the notifications, hit that bell so you can see when we post new content. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment and let us know what you think of the video series so far so we can help better interact with you. Now, at the end of the last video, we had just finished laying out all of the details. In this video, we're going to change perspective a little bit, start putting some details behind it so we can prepare for the next section in which we'll actually be putting in the encounters the PCs will interact with in this adventure. Now, because we're making this from random and then just filling in the blanks with our own creativity, we're still going to look at how to make this just a single adventure, but we'll make sure to leave in plenty of opportunity for growth and expansion of this adventure into a longer story arc. Now, for the tabletop view, our setup isn't ideal for it, so we may have a little bit of shakiness in the camera. Bear with us, we are working on it, and we'll try to get the best capture that we can. In the meantime, let's start diving into the notes we've taken already, start getting some flesh on these bones. So here we have the list from our random rolls, as well as a quick map that we doodled out. And we know we want to focus in on what type of adventure because we rolled on all 3 charts. But I'm going to take off the location based. I don't want to explore the ruins. And I'm also going to take off the other. The obstacle course just isn't doing it. So we're going to select journeying home from a distant place. Mark out the villain. We know that the NPCs are going to be an ally, so helping along the way. And then the other NPC is going to be the patron of the adventure. And as we go through, we know the final climax is going to be with the battle of the villain along with traps and animated objects. So those are our bones. That's what we're going to stick to. So we go back to the map. It's all about the journey. So we know the hometown is the destination, and that's going to be the place where the villain is going to be active. That's going to be the climax, is when they get to the town and meet with the villain. Making sure that they get there in one way. I want to close it in a bit and have it to where there's only one way in or out. And while that's a bit railroady, it gives a good linear progression for the adventurers to go through. So I think that's what we're going to stop with, but we're going to detail this up a little bit more and just really focus on the journey aspect of it. Just because the town being the primary end location, the climactic battle between the villain of the adventure and the starting point is going to be the most important thing. What's going on in between? And how can we look at it in one fell swoop? So we're going to take out the ruin because we're not using that as a location. I like the swamp. I like linear travel. It's all about the travel to the town, the swamps, keeping everything edged in. I'm going to change the map and we're going to start anew. Okay, so we know the end location is going to be the hometown of the PCs. That's where the climax is going to take place. That's the adventure, is getting to the hometown. So of course we're going to keep our river for kind of the pathway home, and a distinguishable feature of the land. And we know we're going to start the adventure at some waypoint where the patron is going to urge them to head to their hometown. And in between we want to have swampiness. I like the swampiness, and we're going to close it in to make sure there's only one path with some mountains, and make sure that it's a more linear adventure. So from all directions we want to close that in and just have it to where they have to take the path through the swamp to get to the hometown. And that's the adventure, is that journey through. They're going to have encounters along the way, and then the final confrontation when they get to the hometown. So adding in some swamp, that will be a big challenge in the journey, is dealing with the swamp. Their path is going to take them right through that swamp and then over to the river, where they'll follow the river, which is the only roadway into their hometown. And again, this is just rough doodles. All we need to do is get an idea so we can start thinking of the encounters, and adding in some hills so that we have varied terrain, and it can lead to different types of encounters, giving us more options on the encounters. Because it's in the mountains, it'll make sense. And we just want to make sure that they've only got one direction in, so really cutting in the mountains to close off this outer path. We want them to take a set roadway in, with the mountains being extremely dangerous and possibly even unpassable for our PCs. And as we have a little doodle of the adventure area, I think it's pretty good. Multi-terrain. We'll have a first encounter somewhere after they meet with the NPC patron, who tells them and urges them to travel home because of the villain. So their first encounter will be in the swamp, and we'll have another encounter at the edge of the swamp. Then we'll have an encounter in the hills, an encounter as the hills meet the river at the edge of town, and then the climactic battle in town. So I'm using 6 adventure points or encounter points because that's an average adventuring day, is 6 encounters. So I've built in 6 along the path, which is what this adventure is all about. Going back to our list, we know it's about the journey. We know the villain is a zealot, and with that there, I definitely think that will save him for the climax. And for the first NPC, the ally, and the second, we'll have them, if we have, rather than have them both be at the beginning point, what if we have the patron be at the beginning point and the ally who's going to journey with them seeking revenge be found along the way? That could be part of one of the encounters. And then of course the climax with the traps and the villain attacking will be in town. So we've got a possibility of 6 encounters, and the adventure is along the roadway from the waypoint to the PC's home. Already it's shaping up to be a good adventure. So questions we have to answer. The villain. Who is he? What is he? And how does he play into the main nemesis? And then we also have to look at the NPCs. We know that they're going to be allies, but who are they and how do they play into the background of the characters. And then for the patron, also, who is he or what is he? And again, how does he play into the overall story? So those will be questions we'll have to answer in the next series when we start putting things together. And then another point that we need to answer is, how can we make this meaningful for the PCs to where they want to go on this adventure? So these questions here we'll start covering in encounter building. We'll do that in another video. So our adventure has some added details. I've got a good idea of how I want to build the adventure and how to utilize the random pieces that we rolled out of the Dungeon Master's Guide adventure building section. Now what we want to do is go through and start filling in the details and actually making the adventure have impactful encounters for the PCs. Because this is a location-based adventure, it's all about that trip, it's all about that journey, it's all about getting them from point A to point B. So in the next video section, we'll start putting the encounters together. We'll again continue to use the Dungeon Master's Guide as well as the Monster Manual to start putting the encounters together and making them impactful and making sure that they're a little bit unique and different. That way our PCs have an opportunity to experience a completely different setting and environment from what they may encounter in other adventures. So make sure to continue to watch the channel, and let's continue to build an adventure together. We have our marching orders for the next video. Make sure you tune in and watch it next week.